Bobby Welch is 25 years veteran in the mortgage banking business, started out at Fleet, was at Aegis, was at Envoy recently, has been both the operations and on the selling part of it. And I wanted to have Bobby kind of explain from his practical experience from using, the pre-hire assessment, how did that help you as a manager?
Gosh, I'll tell you, they helped a lot. And I'll also be honest with you. In the beginning, I was, I would describe the way I was approaching it as hopeful but skeptical.
Okay, well, you're honest. That counts.
Yeah, there was a part of me that thought, man, I've interviewed so many people, and my gut instincts are pretty good, and I just didn't quite understand how maybe this test could do something better than I could. But I was hopeful because at the time we were spending a lot of money on guarantees and just not really, having a great success rate, not really understanding if a salesperson was going to flop or not until 90 to 120 days into it after we've got a pretty big investment. This was even before now. I think now it's even more important because you've got all of the wage and hourly standards, which you can't even hire a brand new person with minimal experience or no following without investing some pretty big cash into. So, I had enough pain to at least be open to it. And so we implemented it, and I'll tell you, it probably chopped the bottom, call it 30 to 35% of our bad hires disappeared. We still made bad hires. It didn't completely eliminate it. There's a lot of due diligence that the hiring manager still has to do, but it really helped us identify and reduce that bottom tier.
So, Bobby, when you look at it, this is always the hesitation that managers have is, what if I have a top producer and he fails the test? What happens then?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I learned early on is there were several times in which they really just did not do well on the test. They were definitely in the bottom of the scoring, and I went with what I felt I was sensing over the test, and I did that probably the first, call it 9 months, less than a year that we were using it, and in every single case, I ended up being proved wrong. That was my experience. That sometimes there are reasons that a top producer is a top producer that has nothing to do with their own skill set is what I finally landed on. Some that's just an amazing support staff that they could be leaving behind. Sometimes you don't understand the source of their leads correctly, and when they leave that, they flop. Kind of a one-time lucky hit, flat in the pan type environment, and I unfortunately have hired quite a few of those.
Well, we've all had a few of them in our life, but certainly, again, we're not 100% accurate. We are 70% accurate, but that's a large percentage, and we certainly have clients that will continue to hire people that fall into our fail grades, and eventually they come around like Bobby does, is that, gee, this actually will help us. And it helps you from, if you take that bottom group out, Bobby, from your interviewing time and all of that, doesn't that lessen it a lot for you?
Oh, huge. Absolutely huge. That's big money. From just a standpoint of what you're going to pay them in wages to the training and the support and the distraction, sometimes the morale when you have turnover, especially when you're opening new markets. At the time I was using it, we were expanding quite a bit, and you go into a new market that you're not known, and you hire 15 loan officers fairly rapidly.
I think Bobby certainly has the same experience that we see at many of our clients, is that, again, usually there's a pain point, and the pain point is, I think, 2014 is a much more difficult market, and because of that, the hires that we were making, even though it's common within the industry to certainly recruit heavily, but are we really recruiting the right people? And these are different tools that help you make that decision in a better way. I'd like to open up to see if there's any other questions, and want to just kind of wrap up in a few seconds. Any other questions that anyone would have? I'd be glad to answer. All right. Well, just a couple things that we have also put together kind of a hiring ebook and a coaching ebook that might be something that you might want to look at. Those two books are based on, the research that we have done, so feel free to certainly check them out. I also have hiring and coaching blogs that I do on my website. Certainly sign up for the weekly sales blog that I give. I certainly would love to have you part of our client base. And finally, if there's any other questions that you may not thought of now, I'd be glad to answer them. Just certainly email me with your questions. Thanks so much, and certainly thank you for being part of our webinar today. Have a great day.